Welcome to the 42nd episode of the Animal Riot Podcast, brought to you by Animal Riot Press, a literary press for books that matter. I'm your guest host today, Katie Rainey, and I am super excited because I finally get a chance to sit down with Bob Raymonda. Is that how I say your last name?
Bob Raymonda.
Raymonda?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Close enough.
We've known each other for a little while over email and stuff. Couple years,
yeah.
But never met in person until last year.
Last fall, maybe?
Yeah,
It was
sometime.
gloomy, yeah.
It was gloomy.
Yeah.
We finally met in person.
Absolutely.
And now I'm excited that we get to sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, I'm so pumped to be here.
Before I officially introduce Bob, I want to say that today's brand of fuckery is brought to you by Self-Care. Brian isn't here tonight because he needed some self-care tonight. The last several months have been pretty full and tough and rewarding and just a lot for us, so he needed the night off. Bob, what do you do for self-care?
It depends on the day, but I tend to just drown myself in food and television.
Yeah, I know, but I've been watching a lot of Parks and Rec. And
It's comfort. There are specific comfort shows that I have, like The Office. I can watch 3 or 4 times a year, depending on like how depressed I am.
But then I find I get into a cycle that gets even more depressed, and I have to like shake myself out of watching those shows, like waking up and watching Parks and Rec or something like that. I force myself to like wake up and read instead.
Yes,
because it can make it worse.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, it's having to break that cycle of like that being the show I'm watching versus like watching something new that I can engage with and be excited about and like read criticism of, rather than just like Michael Scott again ad infinitum. Because
because you can literally watch those shows over and over again. You're like, oh, okay, here's Friends. I'll do Friends again. That's a terrible one to watch over and over again.
Yeah, we're falling asleep to that right now, and it is such a bad show.
It's so bad.
It really is.
All right, Bob Raymonda is a writer based out of New Rochelle, New York. His work has found its way into Quail Bell. Say that 5 times fast. Quail Bell. I even said that to myself as I was putting your bio into this before. Quail Bell Magazine, Peach Magazine, Syndicated, Potluck Magazine, and Yes Poetry. In early 2015, he founded Breadcrumbs Magazine, an online literary and arts journal that fosters creativity and collaboration through shared inspiration. We will talk so much more about Breadcrumbs. The project has grown into a community of over 200 contributors across the world in a wide variety of mediums, with more submitting all the time. That's exciting.
It's over 300 now. I haven't updated that in a minute.
Whoa!
Yeah, that's my own fault.
Well, we've had over 300. I hosted it in New York so far.
Awesome.
We kind of started at the same time.
Yeah.
In 2018, he helped co-found Rogue Dialogue. You're not making any of these words easy for me. Quail Bell, Rogue Dialogue. A production company focusing on podcasts with Christy Donato and Adam Raymonda. Is that your brother?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Their first show, a sci-fi audio drama called Windfall, launched in February of 2019. Wait, yes, we're in 2019. Okay.
Yeah, we're almost not, but we still are for now.
I was like, wait, February's coming up. And then I was like, nope, that'll be 2020, Katie. With 2 more shows in active development, Rogue Dialogue aims to create richly sound designed content in a variety of genres. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we're releasing this on Thanksgiving Day. So what are you going to be eating while you're listening to yourself on the show?
I am going to be eating a tryptophan coma amount of turkey and stuffing and all the other fixins.
Yeah.
Nothing super specific.
So you're not a vegetarian?
My girlfriend's a vegetarian, so I eat primarily vegetarian at home, but her family is not vegetarian, and I am not either. So if I'm going out to eat or I'm with her family, then I'm eating all the meat.
What does she eat at Thanksgiving?
So we actually cook stuff for her separate every year that I eat as well. So this year we're doing roasted carrots with tahini and a vegan zucchini gratin, which I'm pretty excited about. It looks really dope.
This is inspiring me. I'm a vegetarian.
Are you?
Yeah. So I'm always like playing around with things. I was charged this year with bringing the stuffing since I don't want turkey juice in it.
Yeah, understandably so.
Yeah.
Have you ever used Minimalist Baker at all? Mm-mm. So that's a vegan. Well, she's not vegan anymore for dietary reasons, but she was vegan and she still posts vegan recipes. But it's like all of her stuff is usually like 10 ingredients or under and less than an hour to prepare. And she's got a huge like Thanksgiving roll up of like entree, side, and dessert ideas that she rolls out. Used to be yearly. Now I think it's just like one that she has since she's not strictly vegan anymore. But there's a ton of recipes on there that are really great.
Okay. This episode was brought to you by Minimalist Baker.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to meet someone who's made a tofurkin. Like a turducken.
Yes.
But it's like, I even forget what it is.
It's like tofu, seitan, however you say that.
Yeah.
And
Satan.
something else, but I don't remember what.
Yeah, I don't either. It doesn't sound very appealing to me.
What's the tempeh? I'm assuming.
Tempeh.
Yeah.
I'm usually just I don't eat a lot of those fake meat in general. They're pretty bad for you.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Yeah.
I think there's this common misconception that like I tell people that Sam and I eat vegan food a lot, and they're like, "Oh, you must be so healthy." And I'm like, "You don't know the vegan places that we're going because it's all just like delicious garbage junk food that you shouldn't be eating.
Yeah.
It's just not made with meat."
Yeah. Yeah, it's real easy to eat shitty as a vegetarian.
Yeah, it really, really is.
Especially like when you go out with people when it's like, okay, the only thing vegetarian on this menu is fries. I guess I'll eat a basket of fries.
Yep. Yeah.
So this will be out on Thanksgiving Day.
What are you doing for Thanksgiving?
Oh, we are going to Brian's parents' house, in which I will be making a vegetarian stuffing, apparently.
Very nice.
And yeah, we're driving on Thanksgiving Day because I don't fuck around with Wednesday before Thanksgiving, getting out of New York. Forget that.
No. Sam's sister lives in Westchester, so it is a 15-minute drive there and a 15-minute drive home, and it is so easy every year.
So are you originally from New York?
I'm from further upstate. Okay. So I grew up in a town called Herkimer, which is like halfway between Albany and Syracuse in the middle of New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were just up in Rochester and Niagara recently. Visited Niagara Falls for the first time.
I love Niagara Falls.
The town itself.
No, not the town. The
underwhelming.
No, the town is terrible. The town is
I was like, wow, this
extraordinarily
casino
underwhelming.
Sucked up all the resources in this town.
Yes, no, it's very sad. But the falls themselves are nice.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we took the dog, did a lot of walking around. It was great. But yeah, the town itself, we were a little like,
just sad. Yeah, we went for the first time. We did with Breadcrumbs, which we'll get more into all this, but we did a small press book fest in Buffalo, and I think it was their 10th year, and I think it was their last year, unfortunately, but it was a really awesome event. And because we were in Buffalo, we were like, might as well just go to Niagara. It's only another 45 minutes. And driving through that town is just like, oh, this is a place where time forgot.
Yeah. We were in Rochester, which is a pretty cool town. I really liked Rochester because I was there for work, and then we just zipped over because I was like, well, neither one of us had ever been.
Yeah.
Let's go visit. It was fun. I mean, we had a good time. Speaking of which, okay, do you know what Rainforest Cafe is?
I do.
Okay, we had never seen a Rainforest Cafe, and Brian was feeling a little down the first night we got there, and we just stopped to eat somewhere, and I was like, this place looks ridiculous. Let's go in here.
Oh, yeah.
And we walked in the middle of a thunderstorm going on with all the animals going crazy, and Brian turned into like a 5-year-old kid and started running around with his like phone videotaping all the animals.
Everything, of course.
Yeah, and sending them to all of our friends. And then we come to find out that that's like a chain and everybody knows about it.
Oh, yeah. I definitely grew up going to like one in Florida when I'd go to Disney as a kid.
Had never been.
Yep.
Brian ordered everything safari on the menu.
Oh, of course.
He even got this like monkey smoothie mug thing from there. So it was a good time. We'll start patronizing Rainforest Cafes.
Did you ever go to, and I don't know what year this closed, but it was like a similar experience in Manhattan called Mars 2112.
No.
Oh, wow. It was such a weird little pocket of my childhood that we'd go to like every time we'd visit the city, where you go on, it's like the Star Wars ride at Disney World where you go in and they're like moving the room around. So you're like going into a spaceship while you're waiting to go inside, and then the other door opens and it's like a basement restaurant and everyone's dressed up in like alien clothing and there's just like UFO memorabilia everywhere, and it was just so weird and I was obsessed with it growing up.
It's gone now?
I don't think it's around anymore.
What's it called?
Mars 2112.
We gotta get a live report here. I gotta know. Mars 2012?
2112.
2112. I was about to say they're a little out, maybe close in 2012.
Yeah, a little outdated now.
It looks like it might still be open.
Oh, it's still there?
Whoa.
Oh, no, I want to
Oh,
go
wait,
back.
no.
No, gone?
Space tragedy. Times Square tourist trap Mars 2112 is dead.
Yeah.
That's a headline right there.
Yeah, that was a weird place.
Oh, damn. Man, I would have liked to gone there. Anyway. Okay, so you're going to your sister's in Westchester for Thanksgiving. That's exciting.
Yeah.
You're going to just take off a couple of days and chill out. What self-care things are you going to do this weekend?
I am going to try to read. I haven't done a lot of reading this year.
What are you reading right now?
Nothing right now. I know that for my birthday, my best friend picked me up the Fleabag Scriptures book. That's all the scripts of Fleabag with Phoebe Waller-Bridge's notes on every one of them. That's supposed to be showing up today or tomorrow, I think.
Cool.
And then Sam, for my birthday, Sam's my girlfriend, I don't know if I've said that already, got me a book called Movies and Other Things or something like that. And it's just a bunch of personal essays about weird pop culture questions that I've been wanting to tear into.
Love it.
But yeah, I haven't done enough reading this year.
Well, cool. Well, you're from upstate. What's the town called again?
Herkimer.
Herkimer.
Yes.
Okay. What's the literary scene like in Herkimer?
So we had an open mic at a place called Diane's Cafe, which absolutely does not exist anymore.
Oh, you're telling me all these great places that are just gone.
No, I mean, I don't think there's much of a scene there anymore. The Herkimer's not a place I go to very often anymore. Neither of my parents live there anymore, but we would do open mics, and it was like a lot of acoustic guitar stuff, but people would do poetry too, and I definitely did some poems way back in the day. Other than that, it was just some very specific teachers that were influential on me on like being interested in that, if not so much a community there.
I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, so I get that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we actually just hosted the first ever artist salon in Little Rock.
Oh, that's awesome.
At the beginning of November, I was down there. So we decided to branch out and include all artists. We had a bunch of visual artists, some writers, and we even had a mermaid.
Ooh, how long were you there?
I was just there for a week, and we were doing this performance, and it went off really, really well, the whole event. And I think they're going to keep going. We've got a team.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we got a team of people down there who are really jazzed about it, because there are no like open mic spaces and things like that down there. Really, everything comes from like the institutional, like, Arkansas Ballet or the Robinson Theater, things like that. But there's no like DIY, spaces like there are here in New York. So we were trying something out, and it went really well. And so I think we're going to keep going there.
That's so exciting.
But yeah, so wait, what brought you to New York City?
So I went to school in Westchester at SUNY Purchase for undergrad. And then I moved to Ridgewood, Queens for a few years after graduating in 2012, and then ended up back in Westchester, I'd say 2017. So I've been back there for a few years now.
I lived in Pelham when I first moved to New York. I loved it.
Yeah, Pelham's a great little town.
Yeah, I was going to Sarah Lawrence, and so just...
I was actually supposed to go to Sarah Lawrence for my MFA.
Oh, yeah.
But I ended up not doing it.
Yeah. Did you do an MFA?
I didn't. I was just looking at the financial aid documents and thinking about the fact that I had just paid off my undergrad and kind of decided maybe not this year. Yeah. Like maybe in the future, but not this year.
We've talked about that before on this podcast. Like no one needs an MFA. You do it because you want the community and space and time to write. And like I met my thesis advisor, and we're publishing his book, David Hollander, in May.
I met David Hollander at a summer seminar at Sarah Lawrence a couple years
Yeah?
ago. Great guy.
Oh, yeah.
I was really excited when I found out you were publishing his next book.
Oh, yeah. I was on the phone with him today talking about his book cover.
That's awesome. That's so exciting. Yeah, I heard him do, I don't know if it's an excerpt from this, but I heard him read a few excerpts at that of Works in Progress.
Yeah, I might. Was it super weird? Maybe had robots in it?
No, this one was also weirdly super personal for me because it had mentions of a New York Central Rail train. It was like a little boy riding a train, and that is the...
When it gets derailed?
Yes.
That's part of his book?
Okay, yeah. So that was the railroad company that my grandfather worked for. I actually have a New York Central Rail train tattoo. So I showed it to him that day. I was like,
"Aw,
this was super. Like, you just hit me today."
Well, there you go. It's going to be in the book.
That's so exciting. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I wouldn't trade my MFA just for that reason, for meeting him, and we had a lot of great teachers there. But also at the same time, like, you're so involved in the literary community here that you don't need an MFA because you're getting everything that you would basically in an MFA. I mean, constant teachers I've met out in our community, and just building that community that you would get in an MFA. And you started Breadcrumbs, which is like the best way to get involved with the literary community, is just like starting your own thing. So let's talk about Breadcrumbs. What is Breadcrumbs?
Breadcrumbs is a literary magazine that I started because of a panic attack that I had.
Oh, as all great things do.
So I had graduated, like I said, SUNY Purchase in 2012, and I had told myself at the time that I could take a year off of writing. I had worked for my whole senior year and a little bit the year before on a series of personal essays. We didn't have a creative nonfiction major at Purchase, but one of my professors got me really into it and allowed me to do my senior thesis in that genre instead. And so it was like really personal writing that like took everything out of me. So I was like, I'm going to take a year off of writing. I'm moving to the city. Like, I'm going to have to figure out how to be that kind of person.
Yeah.
And then 1 year really quickly became 3.
Yeah.
Like so fast. And it was okay for a while because I used to play music. I don't anymore, but I was in, a couple different bands at the time, and that was like scratching my creative itch. But
what do you play?
I play bass and guitar. So the last band that I was in, after 6 months, we had played a show. We actually made some money from the first show. Not a lot, but a couple $100 for a first show was pretty exciting. And then our singer, like 2 weeks later over text, was just like, I don't want to be in a band. And that was that.
Damn.
And so I kind of spiraled for the rest of that year and was just working. I worked at a company called Essence Digital. And
that sounds made up.
They were a super data-driven marketing agency that our primary client in the New York office was Google. So I was working for Google, specifically Google Play, right around the time of the Sony hack, when The Interview was released on Google Play instead of in theaters. And I was just like, it was Christmas time. I was in charge of like these obscenely large media buys and just not having a great time there and not doing anything creative. And it was just really bumming me out. So I had a panic attack one day sitting on the bed at my girlfriend's parents' house. And the idea hit me. I was like, I need to build a portfolio because I want to start getting my writing out there. I want to try to get jobs writing or just like build a community again for my own sanity. And I knew if I tried to just do like a personal blog, no one would care because I wouldn't care. I wouldn't be excited to do it. And I would give up on it really quickly. So my whole idea behind it was to not only empower myself to do work that I had spent all this time and money, cultivating and like trying to get better at, and also encourage all these other people that I knew from undergrad to do the same, who I knew were all in very similar situations that I were. It was so rare that any of us was doing anything professionally, anything remotely to deal with, the art careers that we had dreamed of. Yeah. So I started just emailing and Facebook messaging everyone I knew and sending them a Google Doc. So it was before I had a website, before I had a URL, before I had a name. I just had this Google Doc, and I was basically just like, I wrote a couple pieces and I was like, The idea is that we'll just write work inspired off of each other's work. Mm-hmm. And once there's a working website, it'll link backwards and you'll be able to kind of follow the trail of inspiration back to the beginning. And really, it was like a writing prompt for me in the beginning. And so like my original challenge to myself was to like write something inspired off of every piece that we published, which worked for not very long, but it was a lot. But, by the time we had like 15 pieces, what I did was I got us a Squarespace and I just started publishing them while I was still finalizing the look and the feel of the website, because I figured there was no way that I could launch it and explain to people how it worked unless we had a back catalog so you could actually see the demonstration of like how that inspiration flowed backwards. So we had our official launch after our 8th post was published so that people could click through a little bit. And from there, it really just snowballed. We've done so many different types of projects. We had a podcast for a while where we'd have people perform their work and we'd release little trails. So pieces that had inspired each other, and we'd have those together. But my brother is also a sound designer, so we do light sound design and light score to just sort of like try to elevate it a little bit. And it's been really fun. We've done readings all over. We started at Pete's Candy Store in Williamsburg, moved to Cake Shop in Manhattan before that closed, and then now we've been doing it at Sisters in Crown Heights.
So people how they submit is by picking any piece and writing something inspired. So it doesn't matter, like if I'm a fiction writer and I find a poem, I can write something inspired off that poem.
Absolutely. And I think there's some confusion sometimes when people submit. I think they assume that they have to go off the last one. And sometimes I get that question like, does it have to be the last one? And it's like, no, I have like 6 months of, backlog out ahead of you. So even if you did off, this most recent one I published, it's not like it would be the next one coming out. So really people are encouraged to just go as deep as they're interested to kind of see all the different types of work and art
they're
that
all
we've published.
Linked to the one that they're inspired off
Exactly.
of, right?
Yeah. And some are actually inspired by multiple. So they have multiple little hyperlinks at the bottom. So you can kind of take different paths.
So that's part of the submission. Are you guys through Submittable?
No.
Yeah. Who can afford it?
Just couldn't afford it.
Yeah,
so it's all just email.
Yeah. So they just have to say which pieces they're inspired by?
Exactly. So our submissions just closed for the rest of the year, but they'll open back up in January on the 15th.
Oh, good. So you do a really cool thing where you have a lot of guest editors.
Yeah. So I just started that this year, actually, because I will get more into this later, but because of launching our podcast Windfall, that was really taking up so much of my energy.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to see Breadcrumbs go away, but I didn't really have the time to be reviewing all of the work anymore. I still run our, Facebook and Instagram accounts. I still do all of the, administrative work of actually putting the work into the website. But I've just taken to reaching out to writers that I admire and asking them to solicit work from people that they know, which has actually really helped because we were getting to a point where it was a lot of people were submitting. Like it was the same people submitting, which I love. I have no problem, publishing the same person over and over and over again. But I felt like I was reaching the end of my network that I didn't really, couldn't bring in new voices anymore. And that was something that's always been so important to me from the beginning.
So how do they become guest editors if they're interested in that?
So right now this year has been the only year that I've done it. Our first couple times it was just one editor per genre. And I reached out to people specifically that I wanted to work with. And there's still a degree of that, but I'll also usually post just from our social media accounts and my personal social media accounts that I'm looking for people and have people send me some of their clips and let me know why they want to join and
Yeah.
take part, and then I pick from there. And usually, now it's this most recent one, we did 3 people per genre, which was great. It's built even more of a backlog than before, but I tend to really like so many of the people that are reaching out, so that even if I'm saying no to you this time, chances are on our next
later on,
on our next run, I'll have you come take part.
What are the social handles for Breadcrumbs?
So it is there. This frustrates me to no end, because there is somebody who had a food blog in
Named
maybe
Breadcrumbs.
2014 named Breadcrumbs Mag that got all the just Breadcrumbs Mag handles. So on Twitter and Instagram, we're Breadcrumbs_mag.
And they won't give him up. But they're not doing anything with
Nope,
them.
not at all. They haven't posted in years, but I've tried to petition both sites to, have the handle relinquished to me, but it hasn't happened.
Well, I know I get asked all the time by people who just move here or even in other states who are like they're writers and they're just kind of trying to break into the literary scene at all, and without like going to get, interning at a literary agency or something like that, because who wants to do that unless you want to go into publishing,
Yeah.
And I'm constantly like, you should just reach out to these magazines and say like, I want to be a reader, or I want to do this for you. People need the help, because
and
so
I'm going to start probably asking for even more help in the next year, like trying to get a social media manager to shoulder some more of those burdens from me. So there will be more opportunities, especially in the new year with Breadcrumbs specifically. So definitely keep an eye on all of our handles, because I'll announce those opportunities as they come up, because I'm definitely looking for help. And I'm happy to work with people that are new and don't have a ton of, credits to their name.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to work with people that are passionate and want to be a part of the community.
And it's a really quick way to like get in your foot in the door with multiple literary magazines or just different people in the community, and like start getting your name out there and getting to know people, because that's like the quickest way to get published anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what about Windfall? What is Windfall?
So Windfall is actually inextricably linked to Breadcrumbs.
Okay.
So I'll go back to our very beginning. My brother, as I mentioned, is a sound designer and a composer, and we ran a podcast for Breadcrumbs. But before we even launched our podcast, every 25 pieces for the first, I'd say, 2 years of the magazine, we were doing short form audio dramas. So like radio play style. I had become very obsessed with fiction podcasts, Welcome to Night Vale specifically.
Love Welcome to Night Vale.
And then there's a show called Ars Paradoxica that I really love, and We're Alive.
You would like, not to interrupt you, but you have to check out episode 38 of our podcast. I think it's episode 38. It's called Under the Shroud with Ian Humphrey.
Okay.
He has a podcast called Under the Shroud that you would really, really like.
Awesome. I will check that out, and I will check him out. I'm always searching for fiction podcasts specifically.
Yeah, he does an incredible job.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love the medium in general, because you're able to do so many exciting things with sound design and storytelling. Like, for instance, I'm getting on a tangent here, but this show that I was listening to earlier this year called the AM Archives, they had deaf characters signing in sign language, and they were able to convey it like incredibly. And the wild things that people are doing in audio storytelling are really nuts.
So there were people signing in the room and then people speaking there?
And like interpreting for them, but like you could hear them signing, and they were working with deaf actors.
Really cool.
And it was an awesome episode. So regardless, we were really interested in that kind of work. And, my brother really thought he could sound design it and score, and I knew that I could write it. And we had made a really close friend named Josh Rubino, who was working at the Apple Store in the Westchester Mall with my brother, who was just an incredible impressionist. So our first piece is just about this trucker, and he's sending notes to his sister on a tape recorder, and he just does this real Sam Elliott voice. And it was super fun. And then we kind of got bigger and bigger from there. Our 100th piece actually was a collaboration between 14 people. So we had 7 actors. My brother contributed original music. A friend contributed original music. And then we had a bunch of artists do art of each of the main characters of the short. It was like a 25-minute piece that I co-wrote with one of my co-founders, Dan Toy, who's a wonderful guy. And that was so exciting. But my brother the whole time was really hounding me and saying basically like, we need to make a serialized show. We need to make something bigger and, larger and specifically huge, because so much of the audio fiction space, especially at the time, was using they were using narrators and they were using formats where you had a reason for why it was only audio. It was archival footage or found footage or a podcast within a podcast, which is wonderful and I love. But we also were just like, let's make something that's like massive with a ton of characters and trust people. And so it took us a while to come up with the idea, but my girlfriend Sam actually said to me, why not Argus? Argus is a character that I had been writing about for Breadcrumbs since the beginning. So Breadcrumb number 11 is the first story I ever wrote about this character, Argus, who's one of our main characters in Windfall.
So I can read later.
And even before that, actually, Breadcrumb number 5, there were Wanda and Tin Man, who are also central cast members of Windfall. And it was all sort of surrounding this concept of this alien world where a castle has appeared floating on a cloud in the sky. And it's just sort of hovering over this huge skyscraper to metropolis. And I just wrote a bunch of vignettes in this world from different characters' perspectives. And so I had no real clear idea when Sam said, why not Argus, what that would look like. But I just started brainstorming and looking at these individual pieces that I'd already been writing for over a year and thinking about ways that they could start coming together in a large cast format. So I spent the year, it was August of 2016 to January 2017, where I wrote 10 episodes just totally by myself. I'm not a big outliner. The most outline I did was I'd taken a TV writing class earlier that year. And so I broke out each episode's A, B, and C plot. So just a sentence for what each major plot of each episode would be. And then I just wrote it. And I had known that I wanted to work with other writers to refine the story because it's so vital to have someone else's perspective and opinion on where the work is going and where it can go. So I actually, at one of our last readings at Cake Shop before Cake Shop closed, Christy Donato, who we mentioned earlier, had approached me. She was a friend of mine from college. We didn't know each other super well, but we were both fiction majors, so we had a few classes together, and she had been publishing with Breadcrumbs from the beginning. She had read it a couple readings, and she let me know, I'm burnt out on New York. I'm moving back upstate. I don't really know exactly what I'm doing with my life, but I'm going to have time. So, let me know how I can be involved with any of these projects at all. And the first breadcrumb that sort of became the climax of the season was inspired by the first piece Christy had ever written. So I was like, it's really interesting because I'm working on this whole thing that's tangentially inspired by the work that you published. So would you be interested in coming in and just helping me edit this 10-episode fiction podcast?
So wait, the climax you're talking about, so you have one season out, is that right?
One season so far.
Okay, and so the climax, when did you air that?
That was in July 10th. It was our season finale.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when will you come back on?
So we're right now finishing up the scripts for season 2. Then we're going to launch an Indiegogo in early 2020 because we're hoping to pay our actors this time around. We did not get to do that the first time around. We did pay for everyone's travel that came from here. Some of our cast was from New York City. A lot of our cast was from a local theater community in Syracuse where we recorded.
So you're recording up in Syracuse.
We recorded up in Syracuse at Christy's house. So she's got a 3-bedroom house. She had a spare bedroom that was empty at the time. So my brother had a lot of recording equipment. He bought some more mics so that we could record up to 7 people at a time. We had 10 microphones set up in one room.
Wow.
And then we had a control center in the room right across I say hall, but it's literally just like the opposite end of the stairway. And so for a week, we recorded with 25 actors.
Oh my God.
It was 40 hours of recording. And
did you guys all just take time off work to do this?
Yep. We took a week off of work. We paid for anybody's travel that came from New York City. We put all of them up because my dad lives not far from there. My sister lives not far from there. Christy's parents live not far from there. So we everybody was on couches. Yeah. Everybody was in, spare bedrooms. And it was really like a summer camp experience.
That's awesome.
We fed everybody 2 meals a day. And one of my brother's best friends from college used to work in marketing for the Omegang Brewery. And they donated 10 cases of beer to us. So we had everybody fed, drunk, and happy for the entire week. So we couldn't pay anybody, but our hope now that we have a little bit more of a following and there's a little bit more of a fan base that we can start opening that up, because we'd like to show everyone that we appreciate the time that they've given and the passion that they've given to this project that is so clearly just a passion project of our own.
Wow, you guys really do have a little production company. It sounds like a movie you were making.
Yeah, it was recorded all. It was very, all of our call sheets were very specifically trying to respect everyone's time. So it wasn't at all recorded in chronological order. It was recorded based on who we had on what day. Right. So each day was kind of like different characters' full plot arc.
Who made all these charts?
My brother.
Who's the AD on this thing?
He did that. So I helped a little, but he's the one that figured out which scenes would have to go on which day in order to.
It's a pretty big juggle, and
it took weeks to figure it out, to have it so that I think there was one cast member that had to be there on 4 separate days, but we had a principal cast of 16 characters. And then, like I said, there were 9 other actors that came in throughout that week. And then throughout the course of post-production, we added another 25 voices from remote recording. So it's 50 voices overall in the course of our season. Granted, like at least 10 of those are just like background crowd walla to make it sound like you're actually in a space full of people that aren't named characters with real lines. But we worked with a ton of people, and it was really like an insane, huge undertaking that once we got into the post-production of it, we were like, oh wow, we should have done something much, much smaller. Yeah. But I wouldn't change the thing. I'm really incredibly proud of it. And
I love that. That's so inspiring right now. You're like, I can't wait to listen.
I love it so much. I couldn't. When I started hearing the audition files of people reading Christy and I's words, that's something we went on a tangent. Christy originally came in just kind of as a beta reader and became really a co-creator on the project. So we rewrote the entire thing together through Google Hangouts. We'd meet once a week. We each took ownership over individual characters. So we'd talk about an episode as it was. We'd divvy up the scenes, talk about what we thought needed to change about those scenes, and then split up and write our individual scenes. But then by the time we got into the 3rd and 4th draft, we started just each editing the entire episode. So by the time you get to the final scripts, I know which characters I owned and I know which characters she owned as far as like their overall arcs. But on a sentence by sentence basis, I'm not sure who wrote what anymore because of how much we edited it. Yeah. And it's like the most gratifying process that I've ever worked in. Like if you had told me in undergrad that I would rather work with someone else on a writing project than work by myself, I would tell you that you're insane. But it was so awesome.
What you're talking about just gets me so excited. How many episodes is it?
It's 10 episodes. So they're all from like 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm excited to check that out.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. We're doing 12 episodes for our 2nd season, and we have another show that we have produced we have not moved into post-production yet. So we recorded all of the episodes. It's a 6-episode series. We wanted to do something on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. So whereas Windfall is this very dystopian science fiction, like lots of world building show, our new show, Forgive Me, is like high maintenance, but with a Catholic priest. So every episode is 2 tops 3 people, and it's just a different person in confessional each time. So we wanted to go from
hilarious
big giant thing that took forever to do to much smaller thing that could be done on a much quicker scale.
Yeah, well, you got to do that.
Yeah.
Wait, have you guys got any press from it, AV Club or anything yet?
We tried to get into AV Club, didn't get into AV Club, but we did get written about. There's a wonderful group of folks called Bellow Collective. Bellow Collective is this wonderful group of podcast critics that are building a really incredible and vital community, especially for, it's not just fiction podcasting they cover, but they are really doing so much to uplift that community, because unless you have Night Vale budget or you have like a Hollywood budget, like some of these projects that are getting, famous stars, or you're made by Gimlet, which is great work and I'm excited about it, but when it's more like what we're doing and it's more indie and you're just trying to get the word out there yourself, it's super exciting that there are people actually giving this work the time of day. So they've written about us a couple times, and we did go to, there was a fiction podcast festival just a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
That was in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It was the first of its kind, called Podtails.
Okay.
It was awesome. So basically, these guys that make a show that I really love called Greater Boston were approached by MICE, which is Massachusetts Independent Comics Expo, because it was their 10th year and they had booked an extra venue just in case, and they didn't need the space. So they reached out to these folks to see if they'd be interested in doing something fiction podcast specific. And overall, there were, I think, 130 exhibitors. So
Whoa.
We had tables, we had enamel pins, we had posters, we had stickers, but then there were also panels. So my brother was on one that was about environmental and science fiction, like sound design, and another that was about composing for podcasts. And then I was on one about social advocacy through fiction podcasting. So we were well represented there, and that was awesome. And I've really just found like a huge community of people just through like Twitter, honestly.
Yeah, the podcast community is huge.
It's massive.
Yeah. You get a lot of podcasters listening to each other's podcasts, so it goes,
absolutely, lifting each other up. The fiction podcast community specifically has something called Audio Drama Sundays, where everyone will tweet with that hashtag about what they're listening to or what they're making. And so I really made it. The reason I mentioned earlier that I hadn't really been reading this year, and the reason being for that was because we were releasing Windfall. I wanted to listen to as many podcasts as physically possible.
Yeah.
So my goal for the year was 1,000 episodes, and I'm at almost 1,300 now.
Whoa.
So I blew past that. Granted, there is a huge explosion of microfiction in podcasting as well. So some of these episodes are 3 to 8 minutes long.
Okay.
So it's not like I'm listening to 1,300 hours of content.
Yeah.
But it's been a lot, and it's been really awesome. And so every Sunday I'm tweeting about everybody that I'm listening to and that I'm passionate about, because that's the easiest way to build and become part of a community is to support other people.
Yeah,
We've found
hosted several of the other lit podcasts out there on this podcast, Amazon Book Club, Fiction, Nonfiction, all those folks. It's been really, really great. Well, what about your own work? Going from collaboration to talking about your own work.
Absolutely. So this year, because it's been Windfall focused, my only real writing this year has been on our scripts. We're on our 5th draft of the season. It's 12 episodes. It's almost 350 pages that we've been working on all year long. So that's really been, this year has been totally podcast focused. Last year, I did do way more writing in my personal work because we were in post-production on our show. So I didn't really need to be writing the second season yet. And I don't know how to do any of the audio editing or the sound designing or the composing. That's all really in my brother Adam's wheelhouse. So I really had this wide open space of time for myself. So last year for National Poetry Month, I wrote a poem every day, which was like new for me because I spent so many years like not engaging with poetry at all. And now I've really fallen in love with it again. And I was also at the same time working on a series of micro fiction, like flash fiction vignettes that were sort of like post-apocalyptic birthday parties. So it was this one woman over the course of her life, just on her birthday and like the things that she's doing in this post-apocalypse. But the whole idea with that was that it wouldn't be like this like Mad Max, like big, massive action-packed. It would just be very mundane. Like, yeah, some, bombs that went off and there are mutants and two-headed dogs and like the world is real weird, but like she's just out there trying to get some cake for her birthday.
Where is that published anywhere?
I've got a few of them published. I was actually trying to pull some up today, though. The most recent 2 got published at a magazine called Scarlet Leaf Review. 2 more were published on Gravel Magazine, although I was looking at that today, and it looks like Gravel Magazine is down. So those links don't exist anymore. And then the first one I did was at Fiction Southeast.
Okay.
Other than that, it's been my most recent publications have been poems that I wrote in April for National Poetry Month are slowly getting published. I want to do that again this upcoming April because that was a really great challenge for myself and I was really excited about the work that was made for it. But I just have been so focused on the podcast that I haven't gotten to my like more literary work.
Well, do you have anything you'd like to read?
I do. I am going to read one of those post-apocalyptic birthday parties and then one of those poems.
Sounds like exactly what I want to hear right now.
Awesome. This first one was in Gravel Magazine. That link is dead, but it's called Eggs. All over the country, after everything's gone to shit, there are 2 seasons. Nuclear winter and hellfire. The thing about it is, Rooney's grown up without knowing much else. She's too young to remember what white snow looks like anywhere other than in cartoons, has never had the extreme satisfaction of stepping on a dead leaf in the fall just to hear the crunch it makes while it disintegrates, has never had to wear a light jacket in the spring or felt a cool breeze ever, really. Somehow, though, she still manages. Right now, she's living in Oklahoma. Don't ask her how she got here, because she won't tell you if you try. Don't even ask her what she's doing because she's not going to tell you about that either. What she is going to tell you about is eggs. Oklahoma is inland enough that it was spared most of the brunt of the blast. The pavement here, though craggy and uneven from a lack of maintenance, is still mostly whole. And the reason this is important is eggs. Rooney loves eggs. Fried eggs, scrambled eggs, poached eggs, you name it. She's plucked one straight from the chicken's ass, wiped off the few remaining feathers, and cooked a damn fine meal with it. What she's never done is taken advantage of the extreme heat of the Stillwater noonday sun and cooked one on the pavement. After a particularly heavy morning of drinking bathtub gin, Rooney raids the coop behind the house she's been renting a room in. She takes 3 eggs and stuffs them into the pockets of her baggy shorts and heads out into the town square. Her new best friend, Hippolyta, who's had 3 less glasses of gin than her and is, therefore, the sober one of the bunch, pipes up. You're wild, girl. I'm telling you, you can't do it. It's impossible. Oh, yeah? Rooney asks, with a glint in her eye and a look of bullish confidence that could only come from copious amounts of drinking. Just watch. Rooney makes a big show of holding her egg up for the crowd of drunk onlookers to see. The sun beats down and the egg, which has taken on a greenish hue due to the radiation, shines. Rooney produces a spatula from her waistband and gives it 3 quick taps, cracking it one-handed and reveling in the extra moments it takes to fall to the ground. The egg hits the pavement with an undeniable splat and a hiss. Rooney scratches her nose with the edge of the spatula and burps. See, she asks, what I tell ya. Just because the ground's hot doesn't mean it's going to cook, genius, Hippolyta challenges her. Ah, whatever, you're full of shit. They've only known each other for a few weeks, but they bicker like friends of decades and love each other all the more for it. Hippolyta's the only one who can keep up with Rooney's drinking, and her storytelling, and her constant gambling habits. Hippolyta has a little bit of Muty in her, but she can pass for a Hume, and so she does. Rooney doesn't mention it. Honestly feels that muties get a bad rap and a whole lot of blame for a biological situation that they have no control over. Just all got born in a place that was too close to the blast is all. After a few minutes, most of the onlookers have stumbled back into the bar. They're used to how quickly their eggs are cooked at the one diner left in town. But Rooney's patient and Hippolyta's stubborn as hell. Rooney gets down on her hands and knees to inspect her handiwork. Carefully uses the spatula to free up the edges of the egg white so she can pick it up without breaking it. She likes her yolks runny. All right, the egg's cooked. Next round's on me. Now can we go back inside? It's hotter than the devil's blood tit out here. Rooney gives her friend a passing glance before bringing the egg up to her mouth and opening wide. Tell me you ain't really gonna eat that thing. She takes a giant bite straight into the yellow, letting it break and ooze down her face and drip onto her collarbone. She lets out a satisfied, delicious. Hippolyta rolls her eyes. You know I was going to buy you the drink whether the egg cooked or not, don't you? Always do. Rooney smiles, savoring her road-cooked treat. Takes a second to spit out some of the pebbles and other detritus still sticking to the bottom of it and says, Yep. That's that one.
That was the end? Oh, yeah. Damn.
I
was in.
Thank you.
There's more.
Give me 1 second. I am going to pull up a poem that I think I may have read actually, but
cool.
It's one of my favorite ones. I published it last year on Philosophical Idiot, and
I've never heard of them.
They're great. And this is one of the poems that I wrote last year in National Poetry Month. It's called Your House is Full of Potato People and Little Baby Bugs and Rugs. I walked in my old front yard today. It wasn't ever really my yard. It was just the park across the street, but it still felt like coming home. There was a flock of ducks in that liminal space between the outfield of the baseball diamond and the corner of the soccer field. There had to have been at least 50 of them, all huddled together like they were having a very important business meeting. I tried my best to respect their space, but I had to take a video to show all my friends. They walked en masse in the other direction, and as they noticed me following, took flight simultaneously, moving 50 feet to my left, close enough to remain on their own turf, but far enough away to let me know that I was not, could not, be a part of their very important business. Because, I'm not a duck.
Bob is making faces at me while he reads these. It's great.
Yes.
You're a very good performer.
Thank you. That comes from having done Breadcrumbs for so long.
Yeah. How often do you release Breadcrumbs, by the way?
Every Tuesday and Friday.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, last year I challenged myself to do 3 times a week, and that was fun, but then exhausting. And so that's when it turned into me having to get some guest editors because the well had run dry.
Yeah.
And so after that all ended and the first guest editors came on, I took a little bit of break where I did not have a backlog anymore. So I think there was like a month earlier this year where we didn't publish anything, but it's been consistent ever since, and we're booked out to next March.
Weekly anything is very hard.
Yeah.
We do this podcast weekly, which I just looked because I was like, wait, it's November. We started this last November. Our year birthday for this podcast, November 27th.
Oh,
so
awesome.
Wednesday.
That's this week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy birthday,
so this
rabbits.
is our first birthday podcast.
That's so exciting.
Yeah. So thanks for being here on our 1 year.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And we certainly, we have 42 episodes, so we've missed some weeks in there, but
that's fine.
Yeah.
There's no one to be upset about that but yourself. Yeah. And that's something that I really had to learn. That was difficult, but realizing that no one's going to be mad at you if you need to take a break, back to that theme of self-care, we're people, and we don't have tons of ad dollars to be putting all the energy that we're doing into making
all
this work
this for free.
Exactly.
And we have to work our full-time jobs on top of it. So, but it's really fun when I get to do it and sit here with people like you, and I've had a really great conversation today.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So have I. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for sharing your work too.
Absolutely.
And I'm very excited to listen to Windfall now. You want to shout out all the things that people can go visit you at, Breadcrumbs and Windfall again?
Breadcrumbs is at breadcrumbs_mag on the Instagram and the Twitter, Breadcrumbs Magazine on Facebook, and Windfall is just Windfall Podcast everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
And every platform?
Every platform.
And what is it, breadcrumbsmagazine.com?
Breadcrumbsmag.com.
Mag.com.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And then
shorten it just a little bit.
What's your website?
My website is bobraymunda.co.
Great. Oh, .co.
Yeah, .co.
All right.
My dad's first cousin is also Bob Ramunda, and he's a graphic designer, so he got the sweet .com.
Wow.
Yeah.
Family rivalries.
Yeah, I'll never get that .com, but it's okay. He's a great artist.
Well, thanks for being here, Bob.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Okay, that's it for today's episode. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and review on whichever platform you're listening. You can get in touch with us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Animal Riot Press or through our website, animalriotpress.com. This has been the 42nd episode of the Animal Riot Podcast with me, your host, Katie Rainey, and featuring Bob Raymonda. Transcripts for our deaf and hard of hearing animals are provided by Jonathan Kay. This episode was edited by our podcast assistant, Dylan Thomas, and we are produced by me, Katie Rainey. See you later, you filthy animals.
Yes, sir, it's the burn. Bombing on y'all and getting gully as the fern. I don't know much about